And CBS News legal analyst Jack Ford is with us from Dallas. Jack, good morning.
Good morning, Nora Anthony.
So the jury's about to get this case. We know that the judge is going to allow them to consider this manslaughter charge. How big of a setback do you think that is for Zimmerman?
Well, it could be a problem for the defense, but it also recognizes, Nora, that the prosecution realizes that they've got a bit of a problem with their case. We've said all along that proving second-degree murder here, that George Zimmerman intentionally killed Trayvon Martin based upon ill will or hatred, was not impossible, but it was going to be a difficult chore for the prosecution. Here they've stepped in and they said to the judge, all right, give us this lesser-included offense of manslaughter. Manslaughter means not that you intended to kill anybody, but recklessly, through reckless conduct on your part, somebody died. Often you see the defense asking for lesser included offenses, getting jurors off of the top count to focus on something less. Here, the prosecution wants the jury, in case they are not convinced of murder too, to be willing to take a look at this. If you're the defense attorney, you wanted to sort of roll the dice here. They wanted to say either murder or nothing. So I'm sure they're not at all happy about giving the jurors an opportunity to compromise somewhere in between there.
So, Jack, the prosecutor did not use the phrase racial profiling yesterday, but he did reference Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Why?
We've seen a couple of unusual things in this trial, Nora. Here, the judge initially said to everybody, I don't want you using the word racial. You can use profiling, but not racial. Prosecution has focused on the word profiling because they're trying to insinuate clearly to the jury that the reason why Trayvon Martin was stalked here because he was committing, according to the prosecutors, the crime of being a young black man with a hooded sweatshirt in a nice neighborhood. So the prosecution, without using the term racial, has tried to suggest to the jury that that's exactly why this all happened. And we saw the prosecutor, as you mentioned, channeling the speech, the famous I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, saying about one of the prosecution witnesses, I have a dream that someday the witness won't be judged by the color of their personality, but rather by the content of their testimony. It's an interesting suggestion about a witness, but it certainly, once again, is insinuating into this case the notion of there was a racial component to this murder.
Jack, ultimately, how effective do you think the prosecution was in summing up?
I think they did what they had to do, Anthony. You know, we're sort of seeing role reversals here in some way. The prosecution being emotional, the way sometimes you see the defense when the defense doesn't have a real affirmative defense, but is simply arguing the prosecution hasn't proved the case. You saw emotion, you saw emotionally charged testimony inside the courtroom, and then the prosecution pointing his finger at George Zimmerman and saying to the jury, do you believe that this is really an innocent man here? I think they did the best that they could, but I think they recognize that it is indeed an uphill battle, especially for murder, too, in the courtroom.
Jack Ford, thanks, Jack.